fact. Eugenics, of course, is trying to promote artificial selection. That is, we decide who will reproduce to try to improve the human species. Darwin actually, and some other Darwinists as well, thought that natural selection would take care of matters, and so you didn't have to use artificial selection. Francis Galton, though, and many other Darwinists disagreed. And one of the reasons they disagreed was because they thought that humans had set aside the natural struggle for existence or natural selection by helping the weak and the poor and the sick, institutionalizing people, setting up asylums, that all these things had helped people with disabilities to survive and reproduce, and that therefore we needed to find some way to offset this setting aside of natural selection. And so they thought artificial selection was a way to do that. And so artificial selection could include making choices about who to marry, but it could also include, and by the early 20th century, most prominently was going to include compulsory sterilization as a method, which was introduced into the United States first in the state of Indiana in 1907, but then was also spread to other United States. In fact, more than half the states in the U.S. had compulsory sterilization laws. And various European states also followed suit later on, Denmark. And of course, Nazi Germany obviously had the most fanatical compulsory sterilization program in the entire world in the 1930s once they implemented their eugenics program. I'm not arguing Darwinism was the only influence on Hitler. There were many different intellectual influences on Hitler, but interestingly, Darwinism was a central influence on Hitler because Hitler believed that everything revolved around race, that race was the key to human history, of how human history had. And specifically, he thought the struggle between the races, and Hitler calls this racial struggle. In fact, Hitler, one time when he was comparing his own views to Marxist views, said the Marxists believe in class struggle. We believe in race struggle.
Wow. Okay.
And so race struggle really was a central tenet of Hitler's thinking. And so he sees these races being locked in a Darwinian struggle for existence. And when Hitler actually describes this race struggle, it is Darwinian the way he describes it. He says that the races are reproducing faster in their food supply. That's exactly what Darwin had argued based on Malthus's ideas previous to him. He said that then because of that, they're having to struggle or fight over scarce resources, not enough food to feed everyone. That's again exactly what how Darwin interpreted the struggle for existence. And so Hitler actually, even though Hitler doesn't use the word Darwinism or Darwinian, he does use the word evolution rather frequently. The German word is Entwicklung. And he does use the word evolution. He does he does use the word struggle for existence. He uses that term quite frequently. So he does use Darwinian terms quite a bit. And he also uses another interesting term, the word Lebensraum, or living space, to describe part of what the Darwinian struggle for existence is about. And this was based upon the views of a Darwinian biologist turned geographer named Friedrich Ratzel. Ratzel had argued that Lebensraum was what the Darwinian struggle for existence was all about, living space. It's all about gaining more space because you have to be able to grow your food as human beings. And so you have to gain more space to do that. And so Hitler, when he's launching his wars against Poland, against the Soviet Union, he frames them as being racial struggles for living space. And so this is not just tangential to Hitler's ideas. If you look at the various policies that Hitler has, his expansionism, his attempt to kill other races like the Jews, like the Gypsies, killing people with disabilities. If you look at all these atrocities that Hitler was committing, he was committing them in the name of racial struggle, a racial struggle for existence. It was based upon his Darwinian ideology. So these aren't just some tangential ideas or something in Hitler's mind. These are actually central to some of the worst atrocities that he was committing.
But some people will say, the Hitler and the Nazis, they made certain call outs, or they made certain references maybe to scripture or the Bible, or maybe there's some type of spiritual insignia on some of their uniforms. And in your book, you noted here, I think, about 7 different things that reflect that Nazis were promoting Darwinism. They were promoting it in schools and other. They were promoting it, and this is something I want to get into specifically. So you wrote that they designed materials to inculcate the Nazi worldview among SS and military men, vigorously promoting evolution as integral to the Nazi worldview. Do you want to expand on anything there?
Yeah, they in that last point you made there, they actually had pamphlets that were designed. They were actually divided into class sessions, and these were designed to help to promote the Nazi worldview, to train soldiers, SS men, and others in the Nazi ideology. And in all of those, social Darwinism plays a very prominent role. Again, they don't use the word Darwinism or Darwinian, but they describe it. They describe the Darwinian process. They describe the races in their struggles with each other, and they describe it in very clear Darwinian terms. And again, this isn't just in those pamphlets there, it's also in Hitler's Mein Kampf. Hitler in Mein Kampf makes very clear his notions about racial struggle. There's actually a chapter called Nation and Race. In fact, that's actually the most important chapter of the entire book. And the way we know that is because it's the only chapter of Mein Kampf that was reprinted as a pamphlet by the Nazis to use in Hitler Youth meetings, in schools, in other places where they wanted to train people in the Nazi worldview. And so that chapter on nation and race is central. And in the chapter on nation and race, it talks extensively about about Darwinism and the inequality of races and the Darwinian struggle for existence between those unequal races as he sees it. So this is a very prominent thing that's coming out through Mein Kampf. It's coming out in the schools. They're promoting it in their curriculum. You read the biology. I've read some biology textbooks that were approved by the Nazis during the Nazi period as I did my research on the book Darwinian Racism. And in that, you read the textbooks, and they're laying out these same ideas, the Darwinian struggle for existence. So these were things the Nazis were approving of, promoting, trying to get into not only the schools, but the Hitler Youth, the SS, the military. They tried to get ideological training for all of those things, and Darwinian thinking was a integral part of all of that. In 1941, in his table talks or his speeches that he was given privately, these were private speeches that he was given to his entourage, in which he was much more candid about his views. And here's, by the way, let me make this point too here while we're on this issue too. Back in the 1920s, Hitler did make comments where he was favorable toward Christianity. But of course, during that time, he was candidate trying to win votes, trying to, make his political party more popular. And we know that Hitler would have never lied about anything, for
Yeah.
political gain. He would never have done anything like that. So he must have been a real, genuine Christian when he made those comments, back in 1922 and other ones that many atheists like to bring up. Well, again, obviously I'm being sarcastic.
Of course.
Hitler lied all the time about different things. When he first came to power in 1933, he claimed that he was a man of peace, but behind the scenes he was telling his generals and other people to prepare for war. So he knew what he was doing. He was basically playing to different audiences. And in fact, interestingly, when he was in Landsberg prison, he actually told Hess, his right hand man, he told Hess that he had to basically cover up his anti-religious views because of popular opinion and such. So this is a very forthright thing that Hitler was doing, is sort of playing to be a Christian to certain audiences, but then not in others. But interestingly, in 1941, in his table talks, and here I need to make another little side comment here. Some people have attacked the table talks as being inauthentic, and that is only true of the English language edition. It is true that the English language edition has some problems in its provenance. That is that it's based upon faulty manuscripts. However, we have two German editions, both of which are considered reliable by historians. And of course, I read the German, so I rely on the German ones, and they're every bit as anti-Christian as the English language one, I should note as well. But in the table talks, I think it was October, if I recall correctly, it was in late 1941, fall of 1941. Hitler does very specifically talk about how when he was in school growing up, that he had been taught he'd been taught Christianity in his religion class because in Germany, in the public schools, they teach in Germany and Austria. He was in Austria, of course, but in Austria and Germany, the schools are uh, state run, and the state run schools are also there's a state run religion as well. So you get religion classes in the public schools. So he had religion classes in his public schools, and those he was taught about creation and other kinds of things. But in his biology classes, he was taught about evolution, and he makes the contrast, and he makes very clear that he rejected the ideas about creation and such that, and the religion and Christianity that had been taught in his religion classes, while embracing the Darwinian ideas that he was taught in his biology classes. And that's not all. I mean, again and again, he made similar kinds of comments later on. Both bashing Christianity. Matter of fact, let me give one of his quotes about Christianity. This is from December 13th, 1941. After he was mocked, in that table talk, or his monologue, and his usually these were after dinner monologues that he was giving to his entourage. In that after dinner monologue, he mocked Christian teachings such as the virgin birth and redemption through the death of Jesus. And then he made this statement: Christianity is the most insane thing that a human brain in its delusion has ever brought forth, a mockery of everything divine.